And on that note, let's delve further into the topic of food security on the continent. We're joined by spokesperson from the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, Mr. John Macharia. Great to have you on the show with us today, Mr. Macharia. Now, undoubtedly, COVID-19 has intensified those warnings about Africa's broken food system. The UN is actually predicting that there'll be dire food outcomes going forward. And that's even despite the fact that most African nations have relatively effectively mitigated the spread of COVID-19. Give us a sense of how bad the situation is today compared to last year.
Thank you very much, and happy World Food Day. I think I would want to start by saying that though the situation does look dire, I think African nations did rally themselves and actually come to the table to actually mitigate not only the COVID pandemic, but also to forestall a food security crisis. And in this regard, I think a lot of the investment in the short run was really to take care of the COVID pandemic, but in the mid to long run, we are seeing governments refocusing efforts to continue to tackle the systemic issues that affect food security in different countries. And we are happy, for example, in Kenya, the government has made a commitment to double down on climate investments and to ensure that they're actually included in the budget so that you can begin to buttress and to build resilience, not only of household resilience, but also food systems resilience much broadly. In Kenya, for example, again, we saw the government actually set together a food security war room that was a multi-stakeholder platform that brought private sector to the table, that also brought an interministerial platform that allowed for the food security in the country to be mitigated. There was constant monitoring of prices, constant monitoring of the food that is available, constant monitoring of water, and a lot of the things. So I would really want to emphasize and to congratulate the African governments that were able to step up to the plate with AGRA, with FAO support, and others.
Well, Mr. Macharia, COVID-19 did reveal some major vulnerabilities in Africa's food systems. Give us a sense of what some of those key vulnerabilities COVID-19 shone a light on.
So far, I think the biggest issue that we are seeing as an alliance is the need to have early warning systems. And what we mean is, Africa in general, East Africa to be particular, we've also had a locust invasion. We've also had fall armyworm outbreak. We've had MNLD, maize lethal necrosis diseases, and quite a number of other issues. And this really brings to the front the need to have digital solutions that are able to warn us about pandemics, warn us about crises, and things like this. And I'm happy to say that, for example, in Kenya, they actually used the opportunity to launch their digital agricultural strategy that actually speaks to the IT infrastructure that needs to be put in place to actually allow the governments to have early warning systems. And beyond this, as an alliance, we're also working with the governments in Africa to actually develop digital food balance sheets so that no matter the crisis, we are actually every government is able to assure its citizens that about the amount of food that is available, or whether there's a need for import or a need for export of any extra surplus that the country might have. For example, in a country like Tanzania that has continuously had a food surplus in the last couple of years.
Now, of course, AGRA has been at the forefront of the continent's green revolution. So what can be done differently to address the resilience of food systems to future shocks going forward?
So there are two things to think about. The last decade was really about food production and the need to increase yields. This decade, really the hallmark and the theme really has been around climate change. But for Africa, we've not been able to completely deal with our food security issues. So those two things still continue to be pressing in the country, in the continent. And particularly for climate change, we still need to see an uptake of better technologies that are able to be drought resistant, that are early maturing. We would like to see smallholder farmers access conservation agriculture technologies, integrated soil fertility practices, and regenerative agricultural practices in this regard. And more critically, to be able to deliver this particular set of technologies, we also need to see an effective extension system. And as AGRA, we're actually helping African governments to actually revamp their extension system through an interesting private sector model called the village-based advisor model that is really helping smallholder farmers at the very local level access the right seeds, access the right fertilizer, access the right good agronomic practices.
Now, like you just mentioned, a number of people are pointing to technology as one of the key ways Africa can solve its food security issues. How important is technology, and what progress have we made so far in this area?
So technology is vitally important because it's a driver of efficiency, it's a driver of productivity. I would like to say this, as quite a number of our countries, the seed varieties that are available are about 40 years old. The best they can do is probably provide 4 or 5 metric tons. But we actually have new seed varieties that are able to provide up to 10 to 11 metric tons. And for Africa to be competitive and for Africa to feed itself and to feed the world, then adoption of technology therefore becomes an imperative. But more critically, we also need to think about our soils. For the longest time, Africa has been using macronutrients that are basically, the NPKs, and we have not, for the longest time, replenished the soils with nutrients like boron, like iron, like zinc, that are also not only important for the soil, but also important for people, depending on the diets that you're taking. So we think that it is also important for smallholder farmers to access crop and agroecology specific fertilizers, but more critically also to access smallholder irrigation, and we will be able to buttress the shocks that come with climate change.
Well, many thanks for your insights, Mr. Macharia. Of course, that's John Macharia. He is a spokesperson from the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa.